I think they were asking about the Gotal. My sincerest apologies. When someone says, can you do the goat species, my mind automatically went to these guys. So I've just completely overlooked them. But let's get to the video that they originally asked for. Now, the Gotal, they existed in both canon and legends. In canon, the Gotal species originated from the moon Antar 4, and they were known for their very distinctive horns and their very tall stature. These guys were a common sight, and you can find them all over the galaxy. Now, those horns on their heads aren't just there for show. They are highly sensitive electromagnetic sensors, and they allow them to perceive energy fields and emotions, but they were easily overwhelmed by the interference of complex technology, and their fur was very short and they were prone to shredding. Now, Gotals have been part of the Galactic Republic since the very early days. You can find them in the Senate, and you can also find them in the Jedi Order. Now, interestingly, a mysterious event happened 300 years ago. A group of Gotals just up and disappeared from the Akash system. The lack of answers from the ruling land and the Sky Corporation just didn't give the Gotals any confidence, so they've decided to avoid that area of space. Now, during the Clone Wars, Antar 4 was overtaken by the Separatists. Naturally, this forced many of the Gotals to leave the world. But Gotals, they would frequently travel, and you would see them in places like Coruscant, Tatooine, Lothar, Castellan, and Pantora. Many of them sadly were drawn to the Empire, and some of them did work for them. That's all we have in canon, but in Legends, we have a little bit more. Now, in their society, those horns, they hold a cultural significance, often serving as markers for attractiveness. Some of them were born with smaller horns, and they were just as sensitive as a larger one, but some of them put artificial cones on them for visual appearance. It's basically their version of a wig. Now, these guys, they were happy to form relationships with other species, but they did prefer ones with horns. Now, similar to canon, their horns allow them to detect subtle shifts in energy, but they're sensing emotions and mental states of others. Among their kind, this ability fosters a more harmonious way of life. Because of that, conflicts were rare and emotional bonds were strong, but that keen perception often led to misunderstandings. Simple emotions like anger or affection can be misread. Anger for them could mean, oh, they're planning to off me, or affection could mean like a deep love towards them. But over time, exposure to other cultures helps them overcome these misunderstandings. But love and bonding were nearly instantaneous for these species. Their natural empathy just eliminates those steps that we guys have to take someone out on a date and get to know them and fall in love and so on. And because of this, mating pairs, they typically remain together for life. But despite how strong their emotional awareness is, they do keep their feelings private and they rarely discuss them. Some species do think that they're kind of cold or emotionless, when really that's not the case. They just speak in a very calm and monotone voice. But this kind of reserved nature helps them become much more effective in diplomats, mediators, and negotiators. Now, on their home world, because of their natural empathy, they didn't really need a structure for governments or even law. They just lived in peaceful, self-regulated communities. But the lack of centralized authorities did give them some challenges, like when they wanted to interact with more structured civilizations. But off-world, many other species, knowing what their horns can do, feared that their feelings could be read, whereas other species, they viewed their horns as mystical or unnatural, often creating distrust. These guys, yes, they did have their own language, and yes, they were capable of speaking basic, but their empathetic abilities and being able to sense them just made vocals unnecessary. Many years ago in early galactic history, when they were evolving, their moon had unpredictable light cycles. This was due to its proximity to a gas giant, and that is where their horns developed their electromagnetic sensitivity. They were able to use it as an alternative to vision. Their early ancestors, they used these to navigate and survive. But despite them being able to be disoriented by electromagnetic interference, they did achieve remarkable technological feats, excelling in chemical-based technology. But long before the Republic had encountered these guys, they had already colonized their other moons. But these guys were one of the most earliest of species to join the Galactic Senate. But relationships between the Gotals and other species grew tense, specifically during the Clone Wars. Groups like the Roshu Soon and the militant Gotal faction, they clashed with the Republic, culminating in the Battle of Antar 4. The Republic felt forced to then use EMP weapons during the battle. As you can imagine, this caused significant pain and disorientation on the civilians of these species, and this naturally fostered resentment. But under the Galactic Empire, Gotals again faced further difficulties. Their empathy made them poor candidates for Imperial military, but some of them did collaborate with the regime, but the majority of them did try to avoid the Empire altogether. But in the New Republic era, Gotals then would face persecution. This is all during the Warlord Zinja's campaign, which sought to sow distrust between humans and non-humans, but some of them would still serve as senators in galactic affairs. Then by the time of the Yuzon Vong War, Antar 4 was attacked, but the species remained resilient. They later then became part of the Galactic Alliance, and even in the era of Darth Krayt's Sith Empire, Gotals had remained active throughout the galaxy, where some of them became Sith spies or Sith operatives. That is everything I have on the Gotal species. Hope helped.